Maverick News. The world is watching. In a universe full of ideas, we draw lightness from the dark to a place where opposites attract. Right meets left, positive touches negative, sparking an explosion of truth. Because politics makes strange bedfellows.
All right, let's talk about what happened yesterday in New York. The civil fraud case. Trump got slapped with a $350 million judgment in that case, plus the legal fees, blah, 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 plus the judgment in the E. Jean Carroll case, which I think was, what, 83 million?
83.5, yeah, I think million. That
So
was just
he's-
the defamation case. Not even counting the original case. This is, the sexual assault trial, which was a separate proceeding.
Yeah.
Trump's like,
It's confusing,
It's been so
right?
funny if he just went on there and said, "Hand me my checkbook," like he says, "Here you go, Judge." Honestly, I think the worst was they're saying he can't do business in New York for
3 years?
Yeah, 3 years. I mean, another winner is that judge. I'll tell you, in that case. I mean, this guy is just a weirdo. There's no two ways
And his
about it.
two sons not allowed to run the companies for 2 years.
I think
right?
so, and they got fined like $4 million and maybe $5 million respectively as well. I mean, it's just there was no trial in that case. He immediately pronounced that Trump was liable, or was people say guilty. I mean, it's not a criminal. These aren't criminal. Well, I mean, fraud is a criminal offense in but it's also civil. This was a civil side of fraud. I don't know how you go through a proceeding where every witness, every person involved who ever did business with him that was brought forward said, yeah, everything was on the up and up. We did our own due diligence. We got our money back, and we were all happy and walked away. And suddenly, oh, no. This mythical sort of ethereal, the people or something of New York were somehow offended or harmed by this. So we're going to pursue this man. I mean, this is just, yeah. I mean, if there isn't a case for forget Donald Trump, but I mean, I would think he has to be elected to office. In other words, to vindicate justice in the face of these people who are mangling it. But they're really exposing themselves just left, right, and center to get this man. And it's like, you don't care about justice, you don't care about fairness or basic decency, just to get this man, to stop the orange man. And it's I think it's driving people into his arms. I mean, honestly, I think there's people.
His poll numbers show that it's helping him. It's not hurting him. He just keeps going up in the polls. And, you brought that up, and it occurred to me on this case that they were giving him the Alex Jones treatment.
Oh, yeah.
What they did to Alex in the Sandy Hook case, where they just, they said, oh, well, you didn't comply with discovery, so you're guilty. And we just moved to the penalty phase of the trial without hearing the case on its merits. Right. Isn't that essentially what they just did here?
Yeah, no, it's exactly. And just as I think in the case of the federal case being brought, what they did is, or they're doing to Trump, is what they did to Roger Stone. I mean, just fabricate just a complete miasma of ridiculous pseudo charges. I mean, Roger did say at the time, he's like, I'm just the first test subject. Believe me, they will continue to do this, and Trump will be the ultimate target. And he was right. But no, you're absolutely. I mean, and then in Alex's case, I mean, what did they order? What did he have to pay? $1 trillion or something? I mean, it was so beyond, beyond any sort of. I mean, if there was any credibility left in the court, they completely threw it out the window with these, I mean, cartoonish level awards against Alex Jones. That shows how much animus do you have to have for someone to award something like that. This is beyond anybody's ability to pay in 10 lifetimes.
Well, that's my next question. Do you think that that Donald Trump will do the same thing Alex Jones did and file bankruptcy?
No, No,
No?
no, I don't think he'll ever do that. I think he could afford the 350 million if he really wants to. But I think gosh, I don't know. I mean, I would think you would hope the New York High Court, not the Supreme Court, but the Court of Appeals, what do they call the High Court in New York? I'm not exactly. I know the Supreme Court is actually the trial level court. Oddly
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
But they had ruled against him previously, and I think it's unfortunately another partisan situation where it's like these people are in this rarefied bubble of, I want to say thought, but it's not even thought. It's like it's a cult almost, where it's like we have to get him, and they're totally tuned out to like any sort of reasonable, like even just appearances of like what is reasonable, and I don't know. I mean, just it shocks the conscience what was done. There was no substantive trial on the merits. This judge was this judge is sitting there with Chuck Schumer's, I mean, and Donald Trump probably said it maybe indelicately, but I mean, then he tries to fine him for pointing out the fact that this judge is sitting on the bench and literally has his clerk sitting next to him, which is unheard of. I mean, you don't have that. Judges are supposed to be able to rule on things and to be able to understand the case without being prompted and having this clerk whispering in their ear, who, by the way, is as much a Democrat operative as you'll ever get in New York there. So, just yet another example of how these people will mangle what we hoped would be a fair, equitable justice system, and turned it into a zoo and a complete travesty.
A mockery of justice.
A mockery. No, that's true. Yeah. And then yet they act like, they're the high and holy inquisitioners for God or something. And it's sad. But again, Donald Trump has done nothing if not expose the really crooked people who inhabit the system and walk among us.
Indeed, he has. And that's one of the things I like about Trump. Speaking of, he gave a statement after the ruling yesterday. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very sad day for, in my opinion, the country. A New York State judge just ruled, and he's crooked as you could get. And a lot of people expected something like this, but not for the amount. But this is a very dishonest man. This is a man that's been overturned already on this case 4 times. But a crooked New York State judge just ruled that I have to pay a fine of $355 million for having built a perfect company. Great cash, great buildings, great everything. It affects New York. It's mostly talking about New York, where we have a totally corrupt attorney general. She campaigned on the fact that I will get Trump, I will get Trump. Everybody's seen it. Letitia James, they've all seen it. Well, we'll be appealing, but more important than that, this is Russia, this is China, this is the same game. It all comes out of the DOJ, it all comes out of Biden. It's a witch hunt against his political opponent, the likes of which our country has never seen before. You see it in third world countries, banana republics, but you don't see it here. So I just want to say this. You build a great company. There was no fraud. The banks all got their money, 100%. They love Trump. They testified that Trump is great customer, one of our best customers. They testified beautifully. And the judge knows that. He's just a corrupt person. And we knew that from the beginning. We knew it right from the beginning because he wouldn't give it to the commercial division. This judge thought Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, and it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times that amount. So we realized that. He ruled against me before he even got the case. He ruled against me. He said I was guilty. He didn't know what I was guilty of before he even got the case. And Letitia James, that's another case altogether. She's a horribly corrupt attorney general, and it's all having to do with election interference. There were no victims because the banks made a lot of money. They made $100 million. And by the way, I paid approximately $300 million in taxes as the migrants come in and they take over New York. I paid over this period of years over $300 million in taxes, and they want me out. Oh, let's see if we can get them out. These are radical left Democrats. They're lunatics, and it's election interfering. So I just want to thank you for being here. We'll appeal. We'll be successful, I think, because, frankly, if we're not successful, New York State is gone. People are moving out of New York State, and because of this, they're going to move out at a much faster rate. They used a statute. It's a consumer fraud statute that's never been used for a thing like this before. They used it on me because I'm running for president. I'm beating Biden by a lot. We're beating not only the Republicans, we're beating Biden by a lot. The poll came out today, we're up 20 points on Biden. If I weren't running, none of this stuff would have ever happened. None of these lawsuits would have ever happened. Nothing would, I would have had a nice life. But I enjoy this life for a different reason. We're going to make America great again. These are corrupt people. These are people that shouldn't be allowed to do the things they do. And they're using this as weaponization against a political opponent who's up a lot in the polls and always will be, because I'm competing with a man who can't put two sentences together, who doesn't know what he's doing. And we're heading into a third world war because of this guy. We have to win this election. They're doing everything possible to step in our way, but we're not going to stand for it. So thank you very much. We will get back to work. It's a ridiculous award. Listen, a fine of $355 million for doing a perfect job, for having paid back a loan with no defaults, with no problems. The banks were totally, at the trial they testified. We had an expert witness from the Stern School at NYU that made a statement. And I was very honored by his statement. He's one of the most respected people anywhere in the country for doing this kind of thing, expert witness. He said, this is one of the greatest financial statements I have ever witnessed before. And he talked about even the detail. So my numbers actually were extremely conservative. They saw this, so what the judge did is he brought down certain values like Mar-a-Lago, made it ridiculous, but the expert, after having all of this, testified it's one of the best financial statements he's ever seen. And I was honored by that. But I also knew we have a corrupt judge. He's not a respected man. And again, I said before, he's been overturned on this case by the appellate division 4 times already. It's a record. Nobody's ever been overturned on one case 4 times. And I think very importantly, and I think ultimately the most important, we've employed tens of thousands of people in New York, and we paid taxes like few other people have ever paid in New York, and they don't care about that. It's a state that's going bust. It's a state that's going bust because everybody's leaving, and it's all headed up by Biden, who's destroying our country. So this is Russia, this is China, this is what you've been reading about all your lives, and it's happening right here in our country. Thank you very much. We will stop it. We will make America great again. You have my word. Thank you very much.
President Trump, sell any of the assets to pay for this verdict? Do you plan to sell anything?
What a soap opera.
Yeah. I have to confess, I love this man. I really do. I mean, I'm not one who's gets too emotional about. I mean, I get outraged, but I don't get emotional about politics, and people in them. But there's a few people like Ron Paul, as Laurie had mentioned. I worked for him because I deeply felt how righteous he was and is. And Ronald Reagan, as a young person, I felt was just a man of stature, and I really respected and admired him. But you have to just give it to Donald Trump. I mean, even one of these cases, anybody would be jumping through this. Any person, I don't care who you are, unless you're just a complete raving lunatic, to be treated to what he's been treated to. Again, and just in one of these cases, people will come unglued and people will go postal over stuff like this and being treated like this. And he has just been steady as a rock through the whole thing. And comes out and he starts the hand thing, and I'm just like, I love it. I mean, he's entertaining at the same time as he's righteous, and he's plain spoken about it. I mean, he's not trying to sit there and split hairs about it. He cuts to the chase, and he's hardly perfect. I mean, he's an imperfect vessel. He's got his quirks. He has, an ego, I'm sure, that probably is in many ways deserved. I mean, considering, what he's gone through, what his successes, what he's bucked up to. I think he has to be reelected, or he has to be put back just so the country could say, enough. We don't buy any of your bullshit. You're not going to get away with what you've done to justice in this country. You're not going to turn it into a political weapon for a bunch of pygmies and psychopaths, as these people are, and weirdos and zealots and just people who are, just a total freak show that has exposed the essential rot within our government and how high it goes, how far it's willing to go. And he, I know I love him. I love him as a figure who has stood up to this, has not just gone off. He said I could have gone off and had a fine life, never had a problem, and he didn't. He said I can't let these people get away with this, and frankly, I hope the country doesn't either. And much as I love Bobby Kennedy, and I think he'd be great as a president, you cannot let them do this to Donald Trump or anybody in this country and get away with it. And I think the only way to vindicate it is for him to return to office and to clean house.
What is it about him do you think that they are really afraid of? Do they think that he's controlled by Vladimir Putin?
No.
Like, what is it? I don't get the intensity of the hatred.
You use the right word, okay? Controlled. It's that they can't control him, okay? And it doesn't. They can Vladimir Putin. They know that's total bullshit, and it's been bullshit from day one. It was concocted by frankly the deep state psychos who think that their decisions and their judgment is higher and more powerful and should be be able to supplant that of the American people. They did not. They thought the public got it wrong when they elected Donald Trump instead of. Can you imagine if Hillary Clinton was facing even one of these cases and what is being done to him was done to her? I mean, she was violently having a complete and total psychotic meltdown on election night when she lost. I mean, she was so bad she couldn't even come out and give a consent, couldn't even come out and speak just to thank the people who had worked for her, who were weeping in the aisles, there in the Javits Center. And she could, I mean, and here's Trump just like rolling along, running, just saying, no, we're not going to let this happen. We're going to make our country. I mean, everything they've done has absolutely validated everything he said, no matter how you'd think it was outlandish to hear a couple of years ago, but no, it's all true of what he said about them. And he said it very plainly and succinctly, and they can't control him. And look, he's against every one of he didn't start any wars. The only president to not get us involved further into overseas armed conflicts or whatever, interventions, militarism. He's not one of them. And frankly, I think they're fearful. It's weird because if they had left him just to his own devices, he probably would have gone along essentially with most of what they want. But they, I think, essentially fear him that he's going to come after them, or that he might start empowering people who oppose the deep state, the CIA run, the military industrial establishment run cabal that thinks they control this country and control the world. And would have us, frankly, in a nuclear, exchange with Russia, of all countries. We spent the Cold War finally defeating Soviet Russia, and now they're trying to just bring it back. Meanwhile, the Chinese are eating our lunch. It's just, we've got people who are against him. I mean, it really is a cast of disturbed people. I mean, their view of things is so skewed, and I think in some sort of cosmic way, he's there to expose it all and to out them, and boy, he sure does so. Almost like it's almost cosmic the way it goes down, the way these people go after him in such grotesque ways and so unjustly, and are just completely exposed to what they really are. And that's what I think his value, and that's why they don't. That's why they can't control him, and they should really fear. I fear that they will know that if he gets reelected, it's going to be really curtains for them, that they will try to assassinate him. I don't think that's beyond any sort of reasonable conjecture or possibility. Frankly, I mean, look at they won't give Robert Kennedy Secret Service protection. They gave it to Nikki Haley. I mean, my God, his father and uncle, the president and the attorney general and senator from New York, assassinated, and they will not give him Secret Service protection. That is a disgusting, vicious, malicious outrage that it's unfathomable to me. It shows you that they don't care. That they would rather see him killed than present a challenge to their power.
Yeah. So do you think Donald Trump, if reelected, would start going after his political opponents, the people who have been using litigation to target him? Will he turn around and do the same things to them?
Oddly, I mean, as crazy as I don't think so. He's not a malicious person, as nasty as they say he is. You notice Donald Trump never lays the first punch. It's always the counter punch, and that's devastating, usually. and then they're like, oh, he's so mean, he's so this and that. It's like, well, don't attack him, don't go after him. You won't get that thrown back at you. But I don't, it's funny because what happened in 2016, he said during the campaign, I'm gonna, you should be in prison about Hillary, and she should have been. She should be. She's completed numerous very grave national security crimes. I mean, that email server open to any hacker that could dive in with like literally the highest level special access programs, like something like 19 of them on there. And Comey stands up and just rewrites the law, dismisses her. She runs around with impunity, talking about how we need to deprogram Trump supporters. It needs to be like, oh my God, like just shut up and go away, please. He, after the election, said to basically said we're not gonna drag that out. We're not gonna hound these people, and essentially gave her a free pass and said, I don't want my presidency to be about pursuing my opponent and president. And big mistake, unfortunately. It's like he just he didn't kill the viper when it was caught. He said, well, we'll just set it loose in the wild, and they just they've come back in droves. They came back with more against him, and but there will be. I don't know that there'll be persecutions, or there certainly won't be persecutions, but I don't think the people around him, because they have gone so far in my view, in committing crimes in order to frame him, to go after innocent people, to warp the last redoubt we have in our civilization, our society, our courts, as other than obviously going to just pure violence and having civil breakdown. They've totally warped and corrupted these institutions, and they need to be prosecuted for it. And it's not a matter of retribution; it's a matter of justice. And it's not certainly. I don't think Trump himself would say, "I need to be vindicated," for what they did to me. I guarantee you, would say for what they did to our system and for the disrepute and the corruption they brought to it. There needs to be a reckoning, and it doesn't need to necessarily be that they're prosecuted for it, but they need to be driven out of all these positions that they've bunkered down into. I mean, the DOJ and the FBI are infested. It's disgusting. One person steps up and says, "This is wrong, what you're doing," and he's driven out. Immediately suspended. I'm speaking of a friend, I think his name was, when they were going after the J6 defendants, or the J6 people, and he was saying, "Wait a minute, these are not like violent insurrectionists. This is a grandmother. This is whoever," and they immediately suspended him and then drove him out. I mean, and ruined his career. And that's the kind of people the fact that it can happen to that person. I mean, there needs to be a massive realignment in our government, and I don't know that anybody could do it besides Trump, unless he has a vice president, Robert Kennedy, which would be delicious. I mean, that would be beautiful.
I was just going to say that.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.